From the city of brotherly love, this is Shark Bite Biz with David Strausser.
You just arrived to the newest episode of Shark Bite Biz. I'm your rock star wannabe host, David Strausser, and this is your place to learn how to grow a business during complete global chaos. Today, it's all about networking. First, though, remember, please download the Shark Bite Biz app exclusively on the Google Play Store. If you're an Android user, you will find every single episode of the show, both audio and video, all in one place right there in the app. Plus, you can buy our fabulous coffee, Dead House Coffee, right there. Just click on the coffee store tab. You'll find it. Use code SHARK, get 20% off. But if not, head on over to deadhousecoffee.com. And again, like I said, use code SHARK. You'll get 20% off your order. We'll get all the proceeds to continue growing this show the biggest and best we can. Also, gotta announce this. We now are live on Minds. We have a Minds account, which is, I believe it's minds.com/sharkbitebiz. You can find it on the links on our YouTube channel. So let's get back to today's show. Growing a valuable network and marketing successfully, it's tough. For me, the best way I was able to do it was to create this very podcast. Others have to kind of figure it out their own, marketing via email or doing virtual networking. Lucky for you, though, today's guest is a master of both of them. So who do we have today? None other than Mr. Robbie Samuels. Robbie Samuels is an author, speaker, and business growth strategy coach, recognized as a networking expert by Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Lifehacker, and Inc. He is also a virtual design event consultant and executive Zoom producer, recognized as an industry expert in the field of digital event design by JDC Events. Robbie is the author of Croissants vs. Bagels. It's strategic, effective, and inclusive networking at conferences, and small list, big list results. Launch a successful offer no matter the size of your email list. He is a Harvard Business Review contributor. His clients include thought leaders, entrepreneurial women, associates, national and statewide advocacy organizations, women's leadership summits, including Feeding America, California WIC Association, and AmeriCorps. Robbie is the host of the On the Smooth podcast and hashtag No More Bad Zoom virtual happy hours. So, hey, I'm going to shut up. Let's bring Robbie right on in here.
Business strategy.
Robbie, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. You, my friend, you just became Shark Bait.
Awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So we have a tradition on this show, okay? Every single person that comes on must answer this one simple question, okay? What's your background? What's your experience? What do you do? Basically, tell us in a nutshell, what makes Robbie Robbie?
Well, prior to the pandemic, I spent about a decade working to be known as a networking expert. This started with speaking engagements with a topic called Art of the Schmooze. It led to me launching a podcast in 2016 called On the Schmooze. And a year later, in 2017, my first book came out, Croissants vs. Bagels, Strategic, Effective, and Inclusive Networking at Conferences. And I bet you're going to ask me, what's the deal with the bakery items? So
well, first I was going to ask you, schmooze. It seems like, is that your favorite word?
I was raised Jewish, and schmoozing is a good way of describing what I teach, how to work a room. So bagels are those tight clusters, those, when you walk in a room, people standing in those shoulder to shoulder huddles that are impossible to break into. That's the bagel. But if someone shifts their body language and makes space for someone else to join the circle, that's the Croissant. And so it was about body language, but also sort of mentally, you're going to events not just for content, but for the possibility of great connections. And so it was like, really mindset shifts around how do we prepare ourselves to make the most of these opportunities. That led to me creating a group coaching program. And in 2019, I did a TEDx on this topic. You can actually watch that whole thing at robbiesamuels.com/TEDx. It's a cool way to I brought people on stage. So you just imagine March 2020. Here I am, known for teaching people how to network at events, and the operative word "at" is no longer applicable. We're now all online. And I was trying to figure out how to show up and be of value. That was sort of the mantra that I was living by that week. The week of March 9th is when it all kind of hit me. And I released 9 ways to network in a pandemic as sort of a quick response, and decided I would host a virtual happy hour, which was one of the things I had written down. And that is how on March 13th, 2020, the day that the whole world hit pause, I hosted my first virtual happy hour. And the next week I did it again, and it led to me creating, within 8 months, a kind of new business around being a virtual event design consultant and an executive Zoom producer, which quickly grew to a 6-figure company in 8 months based on all new revenue streams. It kept growing, and 2021, I was able, mid-year, realized we had enough money for down payment, moved to your neck of the woods in Pennsylvania, bought a beautiful home, and kept having a question for a year. So people were like, how did you do that? How did you do that? So I had a book that I started writing in 2018, and I decided to pull it out of the drawer. And that became my second book, which is called Small List, Big Results. Launch a successful offer no matter the size of your email list. Because the secret to my success is that I'm also a business growth strategist. And during that, big shift of March 2020, I was coaching about a dozen entrepreneurs a week through a program that I was working for. And I was getting all these inquiries, but I could have just had coffee chats for the rest of the year. And in some ways would have been very happy with that. But I would never tell a client to do that. So I turned those calls into research calls. And so my book is really about how do you find likely prospects from within your existing network who already know, like, and trust you, do those research calls, and then create a pilot that they will help you validate your idea. So it's all about building an audience before you try to sell your big solution.
Well, that's awesome there. You gave me a lot to chew on, going with the bakery theme. So, yeah, I mean, first off, I think the first thing that I have to ask is networking in general. Okay. You obviously laid out how things were done before March of 2020, how things are done now post March of 2020. Do you miss the old way of networking? How do you compare pre-March 2020 versus post-March 2020? Which way is more effective?
Well, I will say that I have made more connections and deeper connections since March 2020 than the 5 years prior. And the reason is that prior to that, if you and I met at a conference, we hit it off, maybe got invited to a dinner, or I hosted a dinner and you came to it, but we might not have stayed in touch at all for the whole year until the next conference. And then we might run into each other. Oh yeah, I remember you. It was really fun. And maybe then we decide to try to make plans. So I just think that it would take longer to build a relationship. Whereas I've been hosting a weekly event since March 13th, 2020, which is, we're now about to hit 2 years. There are people who've gone to that event 50, 80, 100 times, right? So the relationships that we're able to build with each other, the compounded effort of that relationship, meeting each other. Now, I think that when we're going back to
no commute times. I mean, that's the big thing.
Oh, and time zones. I have a friend I've been meeting with since November 2019, and she's in Australia. We've met once in person. And I don't know if we'll ever meet again in person. I don't know, but we meet every single month. We talk for 2 hours every single month. So there's just something about a commitment to that. And I did it a little bit beforehand because I was someone who was familiar with using Zoom, but now I think there's more people thinking about doing it.
It's more than just you knowing how to use Zoom. Yeah, you know how to use Zoom before March 2020. You probably knew how to use Skype for business, Skype, Teams, whatever software you were using. But the thing is, it's kind of like LinkedIn in many ways. LinkedIn's been around for like almost ever, probably almost as long as video calls have, but the thing is, not many people understood really how to kind of use it effectively until the pandemic. And I think that same thing is with Zoom and with Microsoft Teams, that type of technology. It was around, but people really didn't understand how to use it. But I mean, that being said, now that everybody is using it, kind of exposed some of the shortcomings. Zoom went through their thing with the security and people trolling their rooms and stuff like that. Now they're getting all this massive development to make these tools even more useful than they ever were before. So it's a combination of a couple different things there. So I want to take one step backwards real quick. You said the bagel versus the croissant. That is a cool concept. And I had that scenario running through my head as you were reading that out. And it made me think really briefly. When I first started networking, I used to kind of, I guess you could say, be in a bagel, in like a closed circle, just group of people. And it wasn't really effective. And I'm like, yeah, I met a dude, he's cool. We're going to be friends. And when I was in my mid-20s, it was like, okay, I guess that's kind of cool. But then as I started getting closer to 30, as the years went by, I started thinking, I'm doing this networking. Yeah, I might meet one person, we may or may not end up being friends, but it's really not benefiting me with the business at all. How do I grow as a professional to really, quote unquote, schmooze the room and work the room to kind of get as many touch points as I can and, meet as many people as I can. And, it's kind of like red light, green light in a way. If you see something that's good, I stop, red light, stop. I'm staying here for a minute. And this might be something here worth developing a little bit more and digging deeper. Other people, it's like, okay, green light, really cool. Give me your card. We'll catch up in a few weeks and just move on. But it took me a while to learn that skill. Is that normal, you think?
Oh, yeah. I think that a lot of people have a misunderstanding about what networking in person is about. It's not about actually collecting tons of business cards, and it's not about only standing with people you already know. My biggest suggestion is to write your follow-up email before you go to an event. That would be true in person or online. And the purpose of writing this draft message is to get real clear in your own mind about your reasons for going, and write it to your ideal connection. So think about who's going to be there, maybe do some research to understand who's going to be, who are the audience members, who are the people, maybe specifically you have a list of people or sponsors, and then write the message like, what do you want them to know about you? What would kind of follow would you ask of them? And because I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur, so I wear multiple hats. So I have to always walk in knowing what's the thing I'm presenting first. And maybe other things would come up, and particularly things in follow-up messages could come up in follow-up conversations.
And that can change event to event too, as well.
Of course,
because
every event.
It's almost like if you're applying for a job, you want to kind of cater your resume for that specific job or that industry or whatever to show those strengths. It's kind of like that with networking as well too. You want to go there with your elevator pitch or your follow-up questions, have that prep for that type of an event.
You'd be surprised how few people even do that for like 2 minutes before they go into an event. So it's about being more selective about what events we go to. If it's a virtual event, I would say look for virtual events that are well produced, that have opportunities for you to engage with fellow participants as well as ask questions. You're going to get more out of that than the webinar that you're watching, half listening to while cooking dinner on your phone. You're watching on your phone. Like if you have to be present and you have to engage, you're going to get more out of it, and you're going to get a chance to meet like-minded people. And same thing for in person. If you're going to make an effort to travel, make sure it's for the right reasons. And then I would just also say commit. So if you go 3 times over 12 months versus 3 times in 3 months, same effort, but a very different outcome. Because if you go 3 times in 3 months, you become a regular. People get to know who you are. And even if you miss the 4th month, they could possibly still refer somebody to you. But if you go 3 times once every 4 months, honestly, every time you show up, it's the first time. No one remembers you. And it's just really about committing, kind of to dig in, have those 3 visits, quick succession, and get to know people. I mean, I remember going to a new association and I got introduced through a board member. So I went looking for that board member, and in the process, met other board members, took selfies with all these board members, and met one to the other. And then a week before the next month's meeting, I posted all these selfies on LinkedIn, saying how much I was looking forward to meeting, reconnecting with all of them. And then go back in, and that helped me remember people's names and their role. So then I was able to follow up and have a real conversation with people about what they were doing, what kind of help with it. I mean, they basically were ready to recruit me onto the board, my second meeting, right? Because they're like, whoa. Honestly, it took less effort than me just wandering around hoping to bump into somebody.
Yeah, that's totally great. And I do love that strategy. I've never, I'll be honest, I never thought about it like that, where you were posting the pictures and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Now, one thing that you started mentioning earlier, and I did cut you off to kind of jump back in time before we got too far away from it, was you were starting to talk about the future of events and the direction that we're going. We've had a couple people on here talking about that, and many people tend to feel that the direction that we're going to be going is going to be a hybrid event scenario where you have to have say the conference is, say it's a conference, okay? Let's put networking conferences aside for a second and separate them. Say it's a full-blown conference like I do Vision 33, we do SAP and Sage. So say it's the SAP conference. They're going to have the webinar portion of that, but then they're also probably going to have probably a little bit smaller than they would have in past years, but they would still have the live portion of it as well too. Do you think that's a direction that we're going in? How far off is that?
So pre-pandemic, I made an announcement on several podcasts that I thought that in the next 5 years, in-person events were going to take on more meaning and purpose, and people were going to be really thoughtful about which ones they went to. Little did I know that I think it's true. We just got there through a pandemic, that the events that provide the kind of quality, connection, high levels of production, real value for making the effort to show up in person are the ones we're going to continue to go to. If it's something we feel like we can get the content and meet enough people and just go to the virtual version of it, it's not going to be worth the plane ride. And now we have more options than ever before. So when we do go in person, we're going to really feel like, yeah, there was a reason I'm going in person. That's one part. I actually don't love hybrid. I don't think hybrid, and I mean hybrid as in the same instance, we're trying to provide value for an in-person audience and an online audience. And I think
that's hard. I think that brings some challenges, because even as a speaker,
it's impossible, honestly.
I mean, think about it. As a speaker, I have to be able to have my punchlines ready that will work for in person, but also will fly over the web for people watching from a computer too. I mean, some of those things are hard to pull off.
It's really hard to pull off. And a lot of organizations haven't truly stepped up when it comes to virtual, and their version pre-pandemic of an online access is putting a camera in the back of the room that's pointed at the stage. And
Right.
nobody's going to feel okay about that now that we've actually started to experience quality run, well-produced virtual gatherings. So it would have to be.
It's not that hard. I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's extremely difficult. I mean, you see the show, it's not perfect, but we have a pretty sophisticated production quality, I think.
That's different than community engagement. So one, there's training speakers to look at the camera and acknowledge audience members without like doing this the whole time. There's how do you do online facilitation so that people know who's coming up next and they know how to unmute them. I mean, there's just these fine points. And then there's running breakout rooms with thoughtful questions and who goes first. And so there's just all these pieces. And if you haven't really stepped up to learn that, and now you're trying to also add it in person, I think it's going to be a big fail. So here's how I would prefer to see hybrid. Events are not a moment in time. Events are conversations that's ongoing year round. And some parts of the year, that is a virtual conversation. And at some points of the year or once a year, it's a meeting and get in person. But before, we would have an annual conference, but there was no sort of thoughtful follow-up sequence. And we wouldn't talk for another 11 and a half months. I would love it if there was the event. I actually, right now, I'm basically doing a session design for in-person sessions for this conference. One of my clients is doing their first in-person in 2 years. And I'm working with session owners on how to design their events. And the thing is, I'm not their content expert. Like, they're the content expert. My questions are the same virtually or in person. What are you trying to achieve? And then let's design something. But I'm thinking, okay, let's think about when people come in the room, who's greeting them? Is there a question on the board that they can like talk to each other about? How do we welcome people so that they're chatting before the session starts? Because that's a great opportunity for them to meet each other. I mean, this is all stuff that I've been trying to do since pre-pandemic. But I think particularly now, honestly, like, people are so out of practice, me included, for doing the chit chat in person that I think we need higher levels of support at these events for them to feel really good, like we're being taken care of. We're not just like floating. No, I'm excited. I'm their connections concierge is what they decided to call me. Hosting all these gatherings like during the breaks and during meals and stuff.
I've got to say, I do love your definition of hybrid. Coming on this show, I had honestly no idea what you were going to say. I was kind of expecting that you were going to say what other people said, but you surprised me with your answer. And, that's why I asked the question, because I wanted to hear what you said. And I do, now that I've heard that and I compared it against the others, and I hear what you're saying, I mean, it makes so much sense. And instead of doing a one-off event like that, it should be that continuing conversation that is that dynamic of in person and virtual, a conversation that essentially never stops throughout the year. And it allows you to have more than just that one time annual touch point. It allows you to have multiple touch points.
Here's something to think about. When we were first shifting to online, we talked about all the constraints of online and what wasn't possible. In-person has constraints that we lived with. Yeah. We had to travel all to one location. And because of that, you would have multiple concurrent sessions happening at the same time. I've been to conferences with 40 concurrent sessions. So if it's just 6 concurrent sessions, that's hard. But what if half or more than half that content is being dripped out over 3 months before the in-person? So more people get access to that. And then you have kind of more of a networking keynote and some breakout sessions happening in person over a few days. And then maybe you have a few more breakouts. So it's really like an ongoing experience. And some people choose to, for the higher price, go also to the in-person piece and probably get a lot of value out of it. I just think that when we do in person, we think this is the way it's supposed to be, but no one likes choosing from one of 40. Like that's not, that's not a good thing.
Okay, you mentioned breakout rooms. Now, there was breakout rooms in, traditional conferences like you were just telling us. But over the last year, we've seen multiple video apps like Microsoft Teams. I don't know. I use Zoom to record the podcast, but I don't use it for my day-to-day business. I don't know if Zoom has added it yet or not, but I know Teams definitely has it. I'd be surprised.
Breakout rooms?
Yeah, breakout rooms.
Zoom had it first.
Zoom had it first. There you go. So
Zoom's had it since before the pandemic.
Perfect. So with the breakout rooms now being in Zoom, being in Microsoft Teams, how much of a difference does that make then for collaboration, for these, networking events? Because instead of having 50 different people trying to speak at once, on one Zoom call, you could use the breakout rooms and be like, hey, look, we're going to put each of you for 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, 5 people in 10 different breakout rooms, get 5-10 minutes, get to know each other, and then we'll mix it up with another random set, Does that make a difference? Does that help people? Is it a good add of technology? What's your whole take?
So March 20th, 2020, I used breakout rooms the first time because I thought that they were something you had to pay extra for. It's actually free. It's included in the free Zoom. It's included in the paid Zoom, up to 50 rooms. And so it's a really amazing resource when done well. So I'll give you a bad example first. A bad example is 7 people for 15 minutes with 3 questions. The first question was tell us about a challenge you're experiencing. So what happens when you have that is that the first person who shared their answer to question 1, everybody then started helping that person with that challenge. So there's not enough time for 3 questions. So it's 1 question in a breakout room, and the amount of time should be about 2 minutes a person, except when you're getting over 12 minutes, you should probably give a little more, because unless you're a facilitator, you need a little extra time to move between people. The other thing that's really helpful is don't ask tell us about a challenge that you're having now. Instead, share a challenge you've experienced and how you overcame it. Would be another great way to surface, problems that people experience and share some great solutions and showcase people's resilience without anyone having to be put in the hot seat to get advice. And tell people who's going first. And nothing cutesy. I tried all of the my birthday hair color and color of the shirt. It's too subjective, and it takes time for people to decide who that first, second, and third. No. Alphabetical by first, alphabetical by last name, reverse alpha by first or last. That's all right on the screen, and then it's not subjective. We all know who's going. So just giving, this is true for in-person too, by the way, it would make the in-person small groups even better. They're being really clear, here is the question we want you to have to really grapple with. And then before you open the room, have someone share the prompt and give their own answer to it, because their answer is a story, and stories beget stories, which is why when I say, how was your day? As soon as you start answering, I think of my own answer. I want to interrupt you and tell you my day, because I hear your story. I think of my own. So by giving that answer, that example, it actually will lead people to really get into the content quicker. If you don't provide that, I think breakout rooms are like this weird space where initially 5 or 6 people get in and we all do this, who's going? I don't know who's first, and we all stare at each other. The other thing is technology, using it.
So
correctly.
give direction is what I'm getting there. Just don't throw people in a room and be like, okay, peeps, network. Give them direction, give them order. This is what you're supposed to do.
Also, a countdown clock that you can turn on so people know exactly how much time is left. If you don't turn that on, they're left guessing. And sure, you maybe can message them halfway through, 2 minutes left, but it's just amorphous. But if you have a clock, it's oh, we better get going because we want to make sure everyone's. It's just, there are some people who are naturally good at facilitating. If you give them enough structure, they'll help move things along. But yeah, these are all the pet peeves or mistakes that I have witnessed and refined. this is where I'm a strategist when it comes to this and not just pushing buttons. I don't just open breakout rooms. I actually got a really big gig with a client that became an ongoing client because they asked, can we put 10 people in a breakout room for 5 minutes and then later 10 people in a breakout room for 10 minutes? And I was like, I can't think of why you would do either of those things. It's too short of a time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, you can technically, but why would you? Like, what are your goals? And I can describe some ways, the best practices. And the in-house person answered yes. So they hired an outside person because I asked, I'm a partner who asks good questions to get the right end result. And their in-house person was like, sure, I can do that.
So let me ask you, with your virtual networking that you have going on, okay, it's a weekly event, you said.
No more bad Zoom, yeah.
No more bad Zoom. So with that, how has that evolved over the last almost 2 years now, I guess it would be?
Yeah. Well, it at the height was 50 to 60 people a week. With about a third being new each week. And that was true through the end of 2020 and through about halfway through 2021. And now it's down to probably, I would say, 20 to 30 people a week with still, I would say, a few new people every week. But like,
why do you think it's down?
First it was summer. And so people could leave the house again.
Right. I was about to ask that if it's because things are kind of opening.
Yeah, COVID shifted things. And now, I haven't I'm not promoting it the way I once was. So the people who are finding it new are finding it sort of organically, right? So it's all
or from Shark Bite Biz.
Yeah. So nomorebadzoom.com every Friday at 5 Eastern. And it attracts entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial minded people. And what's been fun is I do a series of breakout rooms. Every other week I have a guest come on. And the last breakout room is a choose your own adventure where they get to choose from like 9 different topics and they can move between rooms. And it's really a great opportunity for you to get to know other people and find some commonality. And we always do like a one around wins. We do a breakout room where people get to share wins. And it's just a really wonderful community. Honestly, for a long time, usually through 2020, I was working nonstop. I had so much going on that year. My business was taking off. I was still working with clients on behalf of someone else. And it just was so much that every day it was a blur's day, but Friday at 5, this one thing happened. It was the only reason I knew a week had happened. I was like, I love seeing you people. So
is there any type of cost?
Really good.
Or can anybody join?
It's free, nomorebadzoom.com. And honestly, it's been a way for me to showcase what I do. I've gotten some great leads for my virtual event client, for 2 virtual event clients by people seeing me. I'm both teaching. I'm offering a little bit about how to use Zoom. I do a whole Q&A about anything you want to know about Zoom. I will walk you through the details. I'll show you the back end, but I'm also really focused on the why. As you can see, right? It's not just like, how do you push the buttons, but like, why would you play music instead of like, just how do you play music? New content, new features are always coming out. So we'll play around with that. I'll bring to them strategy questions that I've gone through with my clients and then get their feedback. Like, what would you do? Here's what we're trying to achieve. What do you think? And it's just been really fun. And I also, because of my passion for business strategy, I've been weaving in more and more of that as well. And so we'll have breakout room questions around business strategy and goal setting, all the content that eventually went into my second book.
Okay. So we got that time for one other question here, which is something that once I saw this on your profile, actually 2 questions, apologize. But once I saw these 2, they kind of caught my eye. And one of them is about email list. Okay. We had a guest on, I think it was season 3, and they were talking about the value of email, even in 2020, 2021, 2022, that it's still like the top way of getting, business, getting clicks, stuff like that is through having an effective email strategy. And you take that a step further, I believe, where you're saying even having a small email list that's effective is very beneficial for your business. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
The book is called Small List, Big Results, Launch a Successful Offer, no matter the size of your email list. And it's called that because the problem my readers have is that they they have an idea for a solution, right? An offer, and they work on it and they develop some kind of program or online course or whatever it is, an app, and they eventually release it to the market. And the market says, "Who are you? What is this? I don't need this." And it's just like, what? I know you need this. And they think the reason they're having trouble is they don't have a big enough email list. They're not sure how to market it and they don't have enough people to market it to. So my point is that I actually think the problem is that you didn't invite input from likely prospects as you were developing the offer. And so my book is all about how you wake up your network, not just your email list, but your larger network. And how do you go through that very thoughtful process to do this, to identify from within your existing network people who already have that know, like, and trust, who are likely prospects or likely referral partners or fellow experts, or people you just want to even have coffee chats with about this. And then do research calls with those people. They may have never heard of you business wise. They might know you from another job you had 5 years ago. They're not on your email list. But now, because of these conversations, they're helping you understand how they see things. Because that's the other part of the problem, is that we're experts. So where our understanding is like high and up here, and they're coming at it from this like kind of, symptom aware. I call it little p problem, because in their mind, it's a problem. But in our mind, like, that's not a problem. This is the problem, the big problem. So we try to sell people big solutions, and they're thinking Band-Aid and we're selling them surgery. And they're like, nope. So we need to, in all of our marketing and all of our calls and everything we do, help people close that gap between little p and big P aware. Because once they understand
You just stole my second question right there. I was going to ask you the difference between big P and little p, but exactly how you're explaining that, that's something, again, I mentioned earlier, we do the ERP with my day job with Vision 33. We run into that all the time. Hey, we don't need the full thing. We don't need every single module implemented. We just need something very light, simple, easy to use, just to kind of get started, and then we'll build it up later. And that, I think, is a perfect example of little p versus big P. And it really takes listening skills, I think, so that you can hear that from your prospect or your customer to identify that, hey, they're talking simple, they're talking little p, not big P.
Talking little p, and also what language are they using? What specific words? Like, not fatigue. They're all saying exhausted. Well, then stop using the word fatigue. Switch your language. If they need training, then don't try to sell them a mastermind. Just really meeting people where they are, and don't see a problem where there isn't one. Like, if they don't have urgency and they're not trying to fix it, don't think they're going to suddenly be excited about what you create, because they're not looking to fix it. No matter how amazing your thing is, like, for whatever reason, it's chronic. Other things are more important. So I just think, like, if you could have 20 to 30 calls in the next 6 to 12 weeks, that will save you a year and a half's worth of banging your head on the wall. And I think so many of us just skip this because we think we already know what we need to know about our audience, or we're afraid to have these conversations, or we don't know what to say. So my book is a very quick book. You can read it in under 2 hours, but it'll take you years to properly implement. And there is a big results toolkit that goes along with it that has tons of resources and workbooks to really, and I'm constantly doing programming to help people figure this out. I just think if we can figure this piece out and find those people who are really into it, we can pilot with 5 people or 10 people and figure it out. I think too many people think the email list is the problem. And then they pay someone to set up Facebook ads to a page that has not been converting. What's the point? You're just spending money to send an audience to a page that doesn't yet convert, or You say, oh, I'm going to do a virtual summit to do list building. You're going to build a list, but not with the right people, because your summit isn't attracting the right people because you don't yet know who they are. Like, I just think this promotional efforts will fail if we don't fully understand who these audience members are and how they see the problem.
Yeah. Hey, this has been wonderful. This has been fun. You've given us, so you've name dropped at least like 10 different books that you've written. No, I'm kidding. But you've name dropped your books. We got your podcast. We got your networking events. So why don't you do us all a favor? Let's list them all out again so that everybody knows where they can digitally stalk you at.
Well, first, since I just mentioned the Big Results Toolkit, this accompanies the Smallest Big Results book. You can get both at robbiesamuels.com/shark. So go there, and when you go to opt in to get the book, you're going to see the option to download the toolkit as well, and you'll be then redirected to Amazon to get the book. And then ontheschmooze.com is my podcast, and you can find it wherever podcasts are played. It's been around for 5.5 years. And then nomorebadzoom.com is my weekly event every Friday at 5 Eastern. I don't have any plans to slow down. It's been too much fun. And robbiesamuels.com is just the home of the eclecticness that I am. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur who does a lot of different things, and I kind of house it all within one site.
Awesome. And for all of our viewers and listeners out there, we will have all of Robbie's links down below in the descriptions and in the pinned comments on YouTube. Hey, Robbie, this has been great. You've given us a lot to think about. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for sharing this journey with me. I love how you asked about everything. It was great. My pleasure.
Hey, I need to know why too. So thank you. Cheers. Wow, such an incredible chat with Robbie, right? We actually tackled all 3 segments of his business right there in one interview. I hope we weren't too all over the place for y'all. First, you all know the routine. If you found this interview helpful, if it sparked those warm and fuzzies, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. But if you really want to help us out, because you know Shark Bite Biz is the greatest kept secret in the world of business, please share us out to your friends, your colleagues, your parents. Share us to your parents out there, wherever you dwell on the interwebs, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Minds, Rumble, anywhere. We're out there. Find us and share us to your community. Now let's get back to our rockstar guest, Robbie. Yet another guest telling us that email list is the most valuable tool in achieving more sales. It's incredible how many people come onto the show and tell us this. And, originally, I was a little bit of a skeptic, and I was kind of surprised because we think of email as an old technology. But as I thought about it, I really evaluated my purchases since we recorded this episode and now me recording this intro segment. And it's true. I'd say 80 to 90% of my impulse purchases, believe me, I got a house full of junk, okay? 80 to 90% of those impulse purchases came because of either an email I got of a sale. For example, I bought my wife some Steve Madden shoes and a purse. I've never bought Steve Madden before in my life, but it was a great deal. It looked pretty cool. And it was like, bam, let's get it. Good price. I didn't disagree, but it was because I received that email. The other reason is because of a social media ad that I see, and it's just like, wow, this is compelling. I think we got like 2 or 3 different robots in the house roaming around because of that for the kids. So there is truth, I feel, in what Robbie and the other experts have been telling us. And I really do want to stress, listen to them, take their word, take my impulse purchases, as proof that having a good email list does work. The bagel versus croissant conversation, that was also pretty good. Being a croissant and having an opening for people to be able to come up meet and greet is a really good strategy to allow you to find valuable relationships when you get back into networking in person. For some people, depending your state, your county, your region, whatever it may be, could be sooner than later. But when you get back to that, keep the bagel versus croissant mentality in your mind as you're thinking about what you're going to do. Lastly, the hashtag no more bad Zoom virtual happy hours. That's awesome. I love what he did. I went out, I started a podcast. He went out, he actually started a virtual happy hour. So kudos to you. I know how much hard work goes into that. And having professionally produced webinar or happy hour, it is the future. And I really liked how he gave us ideas about the breakout rooms and all that stuff. I mean, we're living in a digital world. Virtual networking is going to be here to stay. Learn it, master it. I mean, literally, we're one step from the metaverse. Okay, maybe 2 or 3 steps from the metaverse being like everyday life for us. So like it or not, Zoom calls, Zoom happy hours, Zoom webinars, they are here to stay. So if you're going to be doing it, do it right. Use somebody like Robbie, and I urge you really to listen to his advice. Get things done professionally. Don't try to, half it off and do a little bit of this, little bit of that. Go all in, all or nothing. Go big, go home, okay? Awesome stuff again, Robbie. Thank you so much for coming on. I will definitely join one of your hashtag no more bad Zoom happy hours, okay? I'm probably going to join this week. No promises, but I will try to be in there this week since the episode aired this week. Please remember, for those watching on YouTube or Rumble or Minds or wherever you're seeing this episode at, please remember, grab his book, Small List, Big Results. We're going to have the link provided down below that you can click on, a special Shark Bite Biz link. Question of the day, bagel versus croissant. What do you prefer? Leave a comment down below on YouTube or Rumble. And remember, if you want to be in the show, please shoot out an email at interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. We are full for guests for this whole entire year already, probably even early into next year, but you can get onto the waiting list. And if there's a cancellation, we will get you on. We're also in the process of either adding a second episode or probably doing a live stream, in which we're going to need a lot more guests for this live stream idea if we pull it off. So again, interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the join button, join the channel, $3 a month. You can become a baby shark. You get some perks with that. Or you head on over to deadhousecoffee.com. That's our special coffee brand. You will get the freshest coffee known on earth. Coffee that is roasted, sealed, and shipped all within a 24-hour period directly to your home. And if you use the code SHARK, you'll get 20% off your order. We'll get all the proceeds to help us continue growing this. You all know this by now. But I'm David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz, and we'll see you all next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.